Welcome back to the College of the Air. Every year around the world, enormous number of the new TV programs are produced and broadcasted. But most of them tend to be slipped away from our memories very quickly. But there are some programs which remain in our minds for a very long time. And the Sesame Street is one of those exceptional ones. Today's guest is from the United States, Professor Gerald Lesser, professor at the Harvard University of Education and Psychology. He is also the chairman of the Children's Television Workshop based in New York. Welcome to our program.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah. You're actually the father of the Sesame Street. When is it first produced in the United States?
Well, we began in 1969, so we have now completed 17 broadcast seasons. Each season is made up of 130 one-hour shows for 3, 4, and 5-year-old children, so that over these 17 years now we have produced over 2,000 programs. So we've done a lot of production over quite a number of years now.
Yeah. The children who saw the first time your programs with now had 20 or 30 years old.
Some are having children of their own.
Oh.
That's right.
What's the purpose of that production, and also how you did it?
The purpose behind Sesame Street is to help prepare 3, 4, and 5-year-old children to enter the early grades of school successfully and rapidly. And it was especially designed for children from poor families who, in their early years, when they were 3, 4, and 5 years of age, had not had the opportunity to develop the language skills and the number concepts and the reasoning and problem-solving abilities that would help them when they reach school. So that without some form of early preparation of the kind that we try to provide on Sesame Street, once they reached school, once they came to kindergarten and first grade in the United States, they would fall behind, and they would fall further and further and further behind. So we really were trying to give them a head start on proceeding into the early grades and doing as well as children from more privileged backgrounds would do.
I still remember the first time I saw the program that it's a good entertainment program as well. Of course, it's a good educational program, but also entertainment. A lot of adults watching, and students, college students watching on TV. I think the educational elements specifically directed, but also designed, but also entertainment elements is very obvious or the apparent part of the.
That's right. That was one of the basic principles in our thinking from the very beginning, and that is, in order to use television effectively for educational purposes, we would have to put the education and the entertainment together. We would have to use entertainment as a vehicle, as a way of educating. We would have to make the education enjoyable and lively and exciting in order to use television effectively. So from the very beginning, it was an effort to combine entertainment and education. And some people criticized that. Some people felt that for education to be serious and earnest and hard, or it wouldn't be of any use. And entertainment, on the other hand, was frivolous and trivial, and the two shouldn't be combined. But we thought that in order to educate effectively with television, we would have to use entertainment and education together. Now, you also mentioned attracting older people and adults by the entertainment value as well, and that was also in our thinking. We wanted as many older children in the family and as many parents to watch with their younger children, and we hoped that the entertainment value of the program would help get the older children and the parents to share the viewing experience of the younger child.
Yeah. That's quite amazing thing is that the whole family enjoy that program it is sometimes very difficult to produce such programs like children's programs in this time of very, very segmented viewers or audience.
I should tell you, just to interrupt you for a moment, that while we have 11 million 3, 4, and 5-year-olds watching in the United States, 11 of 12 million 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, we also have 6 million adults who watch the show at least once a week. And of those 6 million adults, 2 million do not have any children of their own.
Oh, I see. So entertainment itself, I see that. That happened in Japan too. But let us see some of the experts from your TV programs, because it has really changed our children programs, not only in the United States but in Japan as well. So we'd like to see some of the segments from the Sesame Street.
Okay.
Hiya. My name is Kermit, and Gordon has asked me to say a word or two in behalf of the letter W. Now, this is a letter W, by the way. It is an easy letter to make. It's made with all straight lines. And you need a W to make such words as wash and woman and weeping willow and I'm sorry, there was some sort of mistake here. I thought I was supposed to talk about W, but they sent me an N here instead. Now, that's an N, see? 3 lines. Zap, zap, zap. The W, as I said before, has 4 lines. Anyway, the N is not a bad letter. And you need an N for nice, and there's an N in nifty, and there's a couple of them in nincompoop, and as I was saying, the letter V is an okay letter. I mean, it's on the list of okay letters. A V is for victory and for very confused, and now this is an I, tilted, or it could be the number 1, but whatever it is not what it was a couple of minutes ago, and some people will eat anything. So I hope this has been an informative little talk on the letter W or V or easy boy there. Take it easy now, or N or whatever. Cool it there, fellow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 eggs and 1 cookie. 10 eggs and 1 cookie. 11 eggs and 1 cookie. 12 eggs and no cookie.
Hiya again there. I think we got everything all straightened away here, and now I am ready to tell you about the letter W. And this, as you recall, is a W. And it's an easy letter to make if you're good at straight lines. Now, the sound of W is in a number of useful and common words. Words like wiggle, and... well, anyhow, W is also the first letter in the word wobble. And it's also in weird. Okay. Anyhow, without the letter W, we could not spell walk. And we also... look at that. Well, as I said, we could not spell walk. We could also not spell the word wander. And we couldn't spell wait a minute. Listen. Oh, we couldn't spell watch it. But without the letter W, we couldn't spell wrestle. And we couldn't spell whack, 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 whack. Oof. We couldn't spell warning. Listen, I warn you. Oof. We couldn't spell war. Oof. And we couldn't spell winning or weakening. We couldn't spell woe is me. Oh. Wow.
John?
What?
Could you count to 10?
Yeah. I want to count backwards.
Okay, count backwards for me.
1, 2, 3, 4,
John.
5. What?
John, you know what?
What?
That's not really counting backwards. You count up to 10. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good. Now that's counting up to 10. Forward. See, now we want to count from 10 to 1. Backwards, okay? Now here's how we do that. We go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
4.
4, thank you.
3.
3.
And 2.
2. Let me finish it up, okay? The last one is, what is it? What's the last one?
I don't know.
1.
Yeah, what?
Yes, that's very, very classic one. Many viewers still remember or recognize these segments. Could you explain this? We are all enjoy this segment as a point of the viewer, but could you explain a little bit from the producer's side?
Mm-hmm. The educational purposes of the segments are obvious. We're trying to teach some very simple language skill, in this case recognizing the letter W and the sound that it makes, and also teaching children to count to 10. But from the producer's side, as you ask, the segments also illustrate some of the principles that we have tried to follow in producing Sesame Street and in trying to combine entertainment and education. The first is to use elements of visual surprise, something we might call incongruity, that is, encountering the unexpected. For example, when the Cookie Monster begins to take apart the W, you don't quite know what he's going to do next. He converts the W to an N and then to an L. When the hand puts the cookie in the carton, you're not quite sure what's happening there. And so the child is watching and saying, there's something unusual going on here. What's going to happen next? Or when the W begins to wiggle and to wobble, there's a surprise in that. W's normally don't move. So the child is saying, something, just that little quiver in the W alerts the child to some element of visual surprise to come. And those unexpected events are very important ways of communicating with children. The segment with a little boy counting to 10, from 1 to 10, and then counting backwards from 10 to 1 illustrates another point that we followed, and that is that we don't ever write scripts for young children. And the young child has to respond spontaneously and naturally. And so Grover asks the little boy if he can count, and the little boy says, well, yes, but I want to count backwards, and then he starts counting forward. All of that is a little bit of a mix-up because the child himself is a little confused as to whether he's counting forward or backward. That is fine with us. It's not that we've written a script and the child has memorized it and the child is to recite the script. We never do that. We let the child speak in their own voices and say whatever comes to their minds spontaneously. And it communicates another important point, and that is when you're learning things, it's important to be able to make mistakes. And the world doesn't end if you make mistakes, and you can count forward and you can count backward, and it can still be fun to do either one. That mistakes are not so terribly critical that that the world is going to collapse if you make a mistake. So it gives us a chance to show that as well.
Yes. Another thing is that this program is very attractive, so the viewers actually get involved. Could you give us the example from the Sesame Street or the other children's films?
Yes. Well, one of the other principles, you're quite right in identifying, is to try to get the children as actively involved in participating in the program as possible, mentally, if not physically. And so we've tried through many techniques to show how television can be used not in a passive way, but to get the children actively participating. And another program we did that was shown in Japan for a few years called The Electric Company was designed to teach children how to read if they were having difficulty learning how to read in the early grades of school. And I think there may be an Electric Company segment that would illustrate the way in which we try to get children to actively participate.
Okay, let's see that segments from the Electric Company.
In, stop, park, walk, yield, enter, exit, one way, Jane Street, Jones Street, Park Avenue, no right turns, no left turns, what can you do? Gas, car wash, subway, don't walk, no parking, two-way uptown, downtown, First Avenue, home, sweet home.
All right now, we'll be quiet.
That's the very nice, charming music, but piece of music. But also, one thing I realized that when I saw the Sesame Street or Electric Company, is that setting is different from the other children's programs. The children's programs often have like a fairy tale background, and but at this time, the everyday environment, particularly urban setting, that makes it very different programs from the others. I think this is quite revolutionary in the age of the urban.
That's quite consistent with the purposes of the program, and that is when you're trying to teach children language and words and numbers and how to reason about things that are happening in the world, you have to show the world. You have to take the child outside of the studio to show that there are symbols, there are words and letters and numbers, and people use them in particular ways. And you want to develop the child's curiosity about noticing all of those symbols in the world around them. So that's right, we do try to use the child's natural environment as a means of teaching and learning.
I quite remarkable thing that in Japan at the time that most children live in urban settings rather than the countryside. That the sort of similarity, also the difference. So I think that your programs have also broadcast in the other countries. How many countries?
Yes, well, since 1969, the programs have been used over the years in 50 different countries in English. Now, those include Great Britain and Australia and Canada, large countries where English is the primary language, or small countries where, again, English is the primary language, Jamaica, Barbados, many countries in the Caribbean and elsewhere around the world. So there are 50 countries that use the program in English as it was used in Japan some years ago. Also, however, there are 12 countries that produce their own local foreign language versions of Sesame Street. There's a version that has been produced for several years in Kuwait in Arabic that is shown in 8 different Arabic countries. There is an Israeli version called Rachav Sumsum that has now been broadcast for several years. In Latin America, there's a Spanish language version which is seen in 16 different countries in Latin America where Spanish is the primary language. There are versions in the Philippines, in France and Holland, in Spain, in Sweden. There are versions in the local languages and reflecting the local cultures in each of these particular countries, and of course they all have their own educational objectives that are suitable to their particular country.
If so, that then there should be the difference in the emphasis on the values of society.
I could give you some examples. For example, in the values in society in Israel and in Canada and some of the other countries, their emphasis is on social tolerance. They want to make sure that the various groups within the country that have had a history of difficulty or antagonism, in Israel, the Jews and the Arabs, or among various of the Jewish groups, that they be brought together in a way in which they appreciate or tolerate the differences among them. In Canada, they want to emphasize how French-speaking Canadian children can get along better with English-speaking Canadian children. In Kuwait and in the Middle East, the emphasis is on teaching children health practices and better nutrition and more safe forms of behavior. In Latin America, the educational emphasis is on how to be a better citizen, how to contribute better to the community around you. In France, the emphasis is on art and music and poetry, because that's what their educational system tends to emphasize.
I see. So the whole different purpose or the whole different social values, the programs to reorganize and rearrange and then reproduce in their own cultural context. Exactly. I see. But now you are in producing nearly 17 years, and then you can now you have the responses from different countries, a different culture, and do you plan to how to organize or integrate these responses into the project?
Yes. Well, we have reached the point now with 12 co-productions, some of which have been going on for many years, where we think that we're in a position to do what would, for us, be a very important thing, and that is to try to use those programs to convey some sense of international awareness, some expanded view of international perspective to children. It's very hard for young children to know what goes on in other countries around the world. And of course, television as a visual medium provides an opportunity to show what the people are like and how they lead their lives, and what the children are like in these other countries, and how they play their games and go to school and live within their families. So we're at the point now where we're taking these various co-productions and we're finding ways to adapt what the producers in these other countries have done for an American audience, so that American children can see what it's like to live in the Middle East, what it's like to live in Latin America or in France or elsewhere. Because I think it's very hard for children to develop that sense of what is out there in the world unless they have a practical, direct view of it, which television can provide. Now, we're doing that for American children, or we're about to undertake that. I hope that that could be done in other countries as well, where it's important to have a sense of what the world is like, of what's beyond your own particular country.
I think that there is no single programs which made such a big impact as a Sesame Street or similar sort of program that you produced, because it is internationally well accepted, but also now internationally coming back to the United States to reorganize the new project. That's a remarkable thing. But at the same time, the child education, particularly the using of TV media, is quite important and also very, very difficult for many, many countries. So could you give some message to your advice for that? how to make the big project more efficient and more educationally suitable.
How to make the use of television
and
and the new media,
media
as well. Well, as you know, we are now entering a time when not only broadcast television is available to families and their children, but we're entering a time where many new technologies are beginning to appear. At least the machinery of cable television, of computers, of video cassettes and video discs, interactive technology is there. We've made great progress in the machinery, the hardware part of that. But we have yet really to begin to take those new technologies very seriously as a way of providing education for young children. And I think we have to do that. We have to devote the resources and the creative energy to using the new technology in important ways for children.
Yes. Education is such an important human, in our society. So let's hope that the TV specialists and the education specialists and children's experts work together. Possibility is there, I think, but working together is another matter. I hope the government will understand to provide a sort of coordination programs available and efficient. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.